there's been a lot of talk about conservatives boycotting Hollywood. There's been a lot of issues with the grooming stuff that's been going on with Disney. Do you think that boycotting some of these companies is really the best way to go?
I honestly think it should be on an individual basis. If you're going to say you're going to ban Disney, well, what do you mean by that? Because Disney has a lot of smaller corporations.
So I personally think boycotting just generally doesn't work. I mean, you see the left do it all the time, and it hilariously fails most of the time.
All right, hey guys, welcome back to my channel. This is Warrior Woman 91 as always, and I'm really excited to be back. I know it's been a long time since I've done a show, and it's been even longer since I've done a panel, so I had to bring the best people back. And we actually have a new guest today. Kyle is a graphic designer and certified nerd. I can certify he is definitely a nerd. And of course, our longtime favorite person, Jacob Airy from StudioJakeMedia. Very famous person. He's verified on Twitter. He is the only one on this panel that is verified on Twitter, and that's why we know he is important, because importance is conferred upon you only when you're verified on Twitter, as Jacob well knows. And he was verified long before a lot of these other people were. So that's how you know he's the most important person on this panel. So without further ado, we are going to be talking about a lot of different subjects that have been in the media for a long time, and especially just with recent events. There's been a lot of talk about conservatives boycotting Hollywood. There's been a lot of issues with the grooming stuff that's been going on with Disney. There's been a lot of issues with libs of TikTok being banned from Twitter because they're reposting content that's on TikTok that's being fed to children, and they don't want adults to know about that content. So there's a lot of stuff going on. So I'm going to start with Jacob. What do you kind of make of all this news? Do you think that boycotting some of these companies is really the best way to go? Especially with the cancel culture stuff going on, it seems like there is kind of there's one camp of conservatives that's like, let's boycott Hollywood, and then there's another camp that says, well, let's just leave everything open. Sunlight is the best disinfectant. So what do you kind of think is the best balance there?
I honestly think it should be on an individual basis. So, for instance, I don't watch Sean Penn movies, and I think for just all the stuff in his past, and even him uh, allegedly helping Pablo Escobar escape, although he was still captured, and all that jazz. So, me personally, I don't watch Sean Penn movies. I would never tell another conservative, don't watch a Sean Penn movie. Now, I did kind of break that rule because I wanted to see The Professor and the Madman. So anyway, I've got a review of that coming out. But anyway, so I think it should be on an individual basis, because if you're going to say you're going to ban Disney, well, what do you mean by that? Because Disney has a lot of smaller corporations, right? They own Marvel Studios. Now they own Lucasfilm. They have Touchstone. They have 20th Century now. So if you say, well, I'm not going to subscribe to Disney Plus, I'm going to watch stuff on Hulu. Well, Disney owns, because they bought 20th Century Studios, now they own a chunk of Hulu. So how's it going to go? So how I see the best strategy is, it depends. So whenever I watch a Disney something, I will just gauge it. So for instance, I loved Star Wars Visions. And so I was like, Disney, give me more content like this. It was clearly made by people who love Star Wars. Even if you don't like the anime aspect of it, you could tell that the people behind it really love Star Wars. They were Star Wars fans. And then I look at something like, say, say The Last Jedi, right? And I say, I don't want more of this content. I want more stuff like Star Wars Visions, where they're not trying to, what's the word they always deconstruct. They're not trying to deconstruct the material. So that's
like
how
deconstructed taco or something like
exactly. So that's kind of what I would do. I would take things on an individual basis, because whenever we say, it's easier with a social media platform like Twitter, where you can just say, well, I'm never going to log on again, because Twitter just is Twitter. But when you're up against something like Disney and corporations, like, for instance, for another example is DC Comics. I don't buy DC Comics anymore, other than a few Batman titles. And one of the things I did do was, when Three Jokers came out, I bought each individual issue, which was three. There was three of them. And I bought a variant cover of each, and I bought the graphic novel. Why? It's because I want more content like the Three Jokers. What am I not going to buy? I'm not going to buy Saga of the Super Sons. It's cheesy, it's boring. I don't need to see Superboy and Robin traipsing around the globe. So I don't participate in that. I don't give money to that. So encourage the things that you want to see, and then don't go see the stuff that is going to be woke or is going to be deconstructed or whatever. That's what I would do. I feel like that's a better strategy, especially when you're dealing with such large conglomerates. Let them know what you like, let them know the content. And if they get to a point, like in my opinion, DC Comics has gotten where you just don't like any of their stuff, then that's the time to say, well, I'm taking my wallet elsewhere.
Yeah, I agree. I think that it's really easy, especially this day and age, and I see this a lot within conservative circles, to just kind of do a blanket. I'm going to boycott Disney. I'm going to boycott Starbucks. I'm going to boycott the Girl Scout cookies or whatever. I personally love Girl Scout cookies. I don't buy from them because I don't need them. It's not a product that I need, but it's not always possible to completely boycott something or just blanket boycott everything. I want to boycott everything that donates to Planned Parenthood. You're going to be pulling your money out of Bank of America. You're going to have to reorganize your entire life around these boycotts. And so I think and I just don't know how effective really is that. You might feel good on a personal level because you did that personally, but I just don't think that it's an effective strategy that's actually going to get you to the point that you want to get to, as far as actually putting pressure on these companies to stop giving money to Planned Parenthood, for example, or to put pressure on the government to change their policy or whatever. I think that just blanket boycotts are not necessarily the way to go, but I do agree with you. Maybe in some cases they are. It just depends on the situation. So, Kyle, I want to toss this over to you. What do you think? Do you think that we've kind of got in the conservative movement kind of a good balance, a bad balance? What do you think the best strategy would be here?
Yeah, so I kind of have an interesting take on this. I've got 3 little kids, and going with the Disney take on it, Disney's omnipresent. I mean, they're everywhere. They're in everything. So it really is difficult to say I'm going to boycott this company because they just have so much. They're spread across the economy in so many different ways. So I personally think boycotting just generally doesn't work. I mean, you see the left do it all the time, and it hilariously fails most of the time, and has the opposite effect, especially when they shine a light on it. Certain companies or people that they want to cancel or whatnot become uncancelable in so many ways. And so I think that when we try to go and boycott, it's just really an ineffective technique. I tend to agree with Jake. It's like stuff that I really don't want to see. I'm not going to go see it, and I'm going to really focus my time and effort on the things that I think are much better. Yeah, thank goodness that we have the internet to be able to tell us when things are going to be just terrible or woke, and we can kind of get a little preview before we go and spend our money on it. So we do have that tool available to us, and I just think that conservatives don't we have a hard time with this. We still kind of think that, well, we need to play by the same rules that the left's playing by, so we need to go and do these boycotts. We need to have this mutual self-destruction. I don't know if that works. I mean, I just don't see evidence of it really truly working. And if it does, it doesn't work for a really long time. It's really kind of a shorter scale effectiveness. So yeah, like Jake was saying, really, I think it's you either need to find different content you like, or maybe just give it up if it's not really that big of a deal. But that being said, being a parent with little kids, canceling Disney is impossible for us right now. It's one of those things. My wife, she grew up on it. She indoctrinated our kids in the greats that Disney put out. But obviously, as time has gone on, they've made a lot of significant changes. I will say the one thing is we never, at this point in time, just put on a Disney show for our kids anymore. It's like, it's Disney, we'll be fine. Now it's like, all right, we need to screen this stuff first before our kids see it. For example, the Seeing Red that came out was just terrible, and thank goodness we kind of caught it in time, because I have a 9-year-old daughter that's watching all these Disney shows, and I want to be the person to control what she sees at this point in time, to inculcate in her the values that I want to inculcate, rather than having Disney do it for me. And so that's where I'm a little bit more picky and choose a little bit better content, especially as Disney goes. Like before, I never really had to worry about that, but now it's like, okay, everything they put out now, I've got to be very careful about it because my kids are going to be seeing this, and I don't want them to be, indoctrinated with stuff that's just off the wall. So I think and I think too, it's become more and more present, stronger. You had the folks from Disney that said, they have a not so secret gay agenda that they're putting into a lot of stuff as well. I just don't see why they think it's okay to do that. Where their audience are people like me that got little kids, and maybe they grew up with Disney and they don't necessarily agree with those values, and so they're gonna do what I do, and they're gonna start to be a little more conservative and more picky about what they're watching. So
I do think that I think that there's been kind of an underestimation, perhaps, in the problems that people will end up having with this content. I think that there's this, and I'm not a parent, so I'm just speaking as uninformed singleton, shall we say? But I just think that probably what's going on in Disney circles is they're thinking, well, people just want to put their kids in front of the TV kind of as a babysitter kind of thing. I know that's a really easy thing to have happen, and so their expectation is that parents either don't care or don't have time to care what their kids are actually participating in or consuming as far as media. And so that's kind of my thinking on what they just think we can, we're basically the parents. It's kind of like the government now. They think that they're the parents because the actual parents are either too busy or they don't care what their children are consuming. And so the government seems to think that it can come in and decide for the parents, or the Disney Corporation, as the big example, thinks that they can come in and kind of give their parenting or parent vicariously through the TV, essentially. And so I think that's just again my uninformed take. I think that there's been an underestimation by Disney that parents actually care about their kids. They for some reason seem to think that, oh no, we're the parents here. They're not going to care. Or they just send their kids off to school and they want somebody else to do it. So I think that's what the expectation is. So just kind of moving on though with the topic of discussion, and I'm going to toss this over to Kyle. What do you think are alternatives to boycotts? Do you think there's some conservative companies that are trying to create alternatives to Hollywood? I don't think those have all been very successful. I know Jacob and I have talked about PureFlix, for example. I'm not a big fan. Jacob is. I don't necessarily think
not
that,
a big fan. I'm just
yeah.
a fan, a generalized fan.
Yeah, I guess what I'm saying is, though, I think you and I will both agree that it's not as successful as it needs to be in order to actually make a dent in Hollywood, make a viable dent, I should say. So my question for you, Kyle, then is: should we create alternatives, or do you like kind of more the Elon Musk style of taking it over and changing the internal structure of pre-existing companies?
Well, I have to start by saying I'm a perfect parent. I have never sat my kid in front of the TV as a babysitter while I'm doing other things. It's never happened. Just throwing that out there so everybody knows. But yeah, no, I mean, I just wanted to remark on that. You're totally right. Like parents care. Most parents care, and they might think that they can come in and be the babysitter, but that's not really the reality of the situation in most situations. And you saw the same thing with schools when they started doing the COVID stuff, and the teachers were saying, "Well, we know what's best for your kids," and I mean, you could see how bad that backfired, especially in a lot of different places across the country where they felt like they could get away with that. But yeah, I would say alternatives are great, but you've got to be able to compete. I mean, there are some companies out there that God bless them for trying, but I think sometimes you get some of that stuff that's just terrible. And it's like, okay, you made a good strong effort, but we really need people that are professionals in this different types of media and entertainment that are able to produce content that people want to watch, even people on the left and people that don't necessarily have those same values. So I think it's really important to be able to have alternatives if possible. It's great. I'll say one actually I've been watching. I think is really great is The Chosen. I don't know if you've heard about that, but it's a really great one about the New Testament. Um, it's got really good quality. I think stuff like that when you're getting a little bit higher value, higher content, higher quality, you're in, and you're not doing it as a reaction to the left, but rather this is a skill set that you have, and you're able to produce that content. I think that's great. I think we run into trouble whenever that we produce stuff and it's just as a reaction to the left, saying, "Well, they're doing this, and we're going to do something because we're conservative." I think that's where you really fall flat. You're not getting as high quality content as you can, and it's more of a I'm going to rally behind my people rather than I'm going to produce great content that people on the left will say, dang it, I can't boycott this because I love it. It's like the Disney side of it. It's like I can't boycott it even though I don't agree with their values. It needs to be content like that that's produced that's so good that they can't help but watch it or listen to it or imbibe it in some way. So that's just kind of my thoughts on it.
I like that take a lot. Jacob, what do you think? Do you think that it's a better idea to have alternatives or hostile takeovers or change it from the inside or a combination of all three?
I would have preferred the hostile takeover strategy, and this is something I am very angry about conservatives, especially ones that always talk about, oh, we want to get involved in the culture, we want to stop all the woke content. During COVID, Disney, Paramount, uh, Paramount, Lionsgate, a whole bunch of film companies saw a massive drop in stock because of, Universal was the other one I couldn't think of. They saw a massive drop in stock. And so I was saying, oh, conservatives, this is your chance. If all you wealthy conservatives who say, I care about the culture, this is your chance to buy in. And I even went on the Steve Cortez show and said, listen, this is an opportunity here because right now these movie companies are going down because of COVID, but it's going to go back up. And this is our chance for us to get on boards, maybe even become chairman of the boards. And the lazy conservatives did nothing. And I can't, I'm a social media marketer, I'm a blogger. I can't buy into a massive corporate. If I believe me, I would have if I could have. And I would like, I'm so disappointed in that. And Elon Musk, who isn't even a conservative, I know conservatives kind of latch onto him because he's anti-woke, but let's be real, he's a liberal, and he helped Amber Heard frame Johnny Depp allegedly. So he's not a guy I would hold up as a shining example. But I do think his strategy is best, and I also think conservatives are bad at finding alternatives. When we talk about the streaming wars, we talk about HBO Max, Hulu, Disney Plus, and Netflix, occasionally Paramount Plus, but really there are other alternatives in that. I'm a big promoter of Tubi, which a lot of people don't. It's a free service. It's ad based, so a lot of people don't like it, but I think it's a good alternative. They've got some great shows. They're a little bit newer, so they don't have a whole lot of like brand new content. They have a lot of 90s and early 2000s and 2010 shows. But
That's
you know
the
what?
stuff that we're here for, though.
Well, that's what I was going to say. At least it's not woke content. So if you're a parent and you're thinking, oh, I don't want to support Disney because of X, Y, and Z, well, log on to Tubi. They've got some great kids programs on there and whatnot. So that's kind of my take. Is there also Amazon Prime, or excuse me, they don't want to be called Amazon Prime anymore. Prime Video. They have a free app called, right now it's called IMDb TV. It's about to change names to Freevee. They're about to start doing original shows, all for free. Again, ad based. So conservatives, in my opinion, are also bad at finding alternatives. So if you don't want to go, if you think, the kind of the pure flicks kind of arena is, you think it's too cheesy or it's too saccharine. That's a word elite conservatives like to throw around. There are other alternatives. You just have to look for them. And hopefully, and one thing that's really hard for me is I'm a pop culture commentator. So I can't, with I don't want to just say, oh, I'm not going to watch this particular thing because I want to be able to have someone to come and read an opinion about it. So I reviewed the first two seasons of Star Trek Discovery. Didn't like them, although I did like Captain Pike in season 2 of Discovery. Hated the first season of Star Trek Picard, but I got called a shield because I said, well, at least Patrick Stewart is a good actor. So, and I was like, and someone called me a shield for CBS, and I was like, how am I a shield? All I did was say Patrick Stewart is a good actor, because he is. And so I don't just want to say, oh, I'm not going to watch anything from this, because I want to be able to tell people whether it's woke or not, because there is this reactionary ideas. But I'm all for the hostile takeovers. I think that we should do it, and I think we should be better about looking for alternatives and find them, because like I said, they're out there. We just need to know where to look.
Yeah, I am more of a fan of changing existing companies from the inside than I am of creating alternatives. I do think creating alternatives is important, but the problems that occur are
Expensive.
it's expensive, and also, to Kyle's point, the alternatives tend to be just copycat sites. And so what Kyle was talking about is they're just reactions to what's already been made. And you can see that Parler is just a reaction to Twitter. It was just an attempt to recreate Twitter and not have people have their check marks taken away for whatever reason, or not get themselves banned for just saying innocuous things. But first of all, the platform sucked. And second of all, it's just, again, it's not like a new product. And it's kind of the same thing with a lot of these other just copycat sites. Like MeWe is kind of a copycat of Facebook, and a lot of these other things are just, Gab is another copy of Twitter. So many people have tried to kind of copy Twitter, and it's always like it's always like Toasted Oats versus Cheerios. I'm gonna buy Cheerios. I'm not gonna buy the Toasted Oats. Those are disgusting. Just like
also, I think we tend to copy what is available. So
Yeah.
so even Brave, which I love Brave as an internet browser, but they admit that they used Google Chrome's open source coding to help build their stuff. So I think that with Twitter, there's just more available information on its coding, and that's why people tend to copy Twitter more. That's my opinion. I don't think they are predominantly open source, but I think they have revealed some of their older coding and stuff like that. So that's why people are copying them. But yeah, it's kind of like, and again, this is why I'm so disappointed with conservatives, is when all these companies, they had opportunities to buy in and to become voices on their boards. Could you imagine if while Paramount, which is the parent company of CBS, while Paramount was, their stocks were down, a wealthy conservative, Richie Rich buys in, I don't think we'd be having New Trek right now. I think we would I don't think we would go back to the Gene Roddenberry days, but at least Alex Bergman. It's so funny because when Alex Bergman took over Star Trek, a lot of people complained about it. I thought it was good. I just thought it was different. He just had a different, but he was a Star Trek fan, and he took pride in developing Star Trek for the fans, even though some of it wasn't really well received, like the last few seasons of Voyager or Star Trek Enterprise. But with Alex Kurtzman, who's running Star Trek now, I don't even think he's ever watched the original series. It's so bad. So I think that if conservatives had taken that opportunity to move in and to change companies from the inside out, I think we would have. And I'm just using Paramount as an example. You can apply that to any company. I think we would have seen a big turnaround in our content. But maybe they saw the future, because Netflix isn't doing so well right now. But I think that's a reaction to He-Man and Cuties. And also they've been putting a lot of weird Euro content right now on Netflix, because they're running out of stuff that they can keep on the platform. So we'll have to wait. We'll have to see on that. I hope they won't. Conservatives won't miss another opportunity like this.
Yeah, so you kind of answered this question, Jacob, so I'm probably going to toss it over to Kyle. But basically, what I wanted to talk about next was, what is the wrong way to respond to Hollywood propaganda and the cancel culture and all of that? Because I feel like I've also kind of answered this question. The wrong way is to just continue to rehash copycats. I think that trying to cancel leftists in the same way that they cancel us is probably also not necessarily the best idea. I would rather, I like to kind of I know that it's misattributed to Michelle Obama, and she is not somebody who should be quoted on any occasion. But the quote about taking the high ground is a good point that they hijacked, unfortunately, and then didn't use. Isn't that convenient and very typical of politics? But I just think kind of taking the high ground and creating your own things that people are attracted to, not for political reasons necessarily, but because it's a good product or it's a good movie or it's good content or whatever it is, or a good social media platform that's interesting. Clubhouse is a great example. I talked about this on another show recently about how Clubhouse, the app, provided a new take on a chat room. It's audio only chat rooms, and that blew up and got really popular. And then the other social media platforms had to start integrating audio only chat rooms into them. Now Twitter has Twitter Spaces and Facebook has like audio chat groups and stuff like that. And that's an example of a new product or a unique twist on an old product, shall we say, that then other companies had to do copycats of. So I think that that's the better way for conservatives to go, is create a new product that regardless of what side of the aisle that you're on, that appeals to both sides. So Kyle, what's your take on this? What do you think is the best, or what do you think is the wrong way or the right way to respond to cancel culture and Hollywood propaganda?
Yeah, I just actually want to kind of piggyback off what you're saying there. Disruption is really the key there. Yeah, like you're saying, you can create all these copycats. You got Parler, which is awful, Gab, and MeWe. It's like they're really not going anywhere. You're just getting people from your own tribe to join them, and then it's like, okay, great, we'll stay here for a little bit, but we really like Twitter, so we're going to go back to that, and that's what ends up happening all the time. Or, like you're saying, you just have a really terrible platform that just doesn't function right. It's something that's already been done, so you're going to go back to what you're used to. When you create something that's disruptive, that's completely different off the wall, but it's a huge value add, that's when you're going to see people say, yeah, it's got some kinks in it and it's, messed up a little bit here and there, but this is new and this is where things are going. I think that's when you're going to see a lot of people move towards that kind of stuff, because you're not just capturing your own tribe at that point. You're capturing a huge audience of people that maybe don't even agree with anything you agree with, but they really enjoy your product or your service that you're putting out there. And so I think that's the right way to respond. As, yeah, let's do some disruption. Let's do that. Yeah, even hostile takeovers are possible. Sure, that's a great way to be able to change a culture there too. Despite everything that the people at Twitter say, you're going to be able to change the culture pretty quickly there, I'm sure. But I don't. I think just again, the boycotting, it just does not work. We've seen it. We've got historical proof that boycotting products, services, just generally is just not going to work long term. Don't see any point in doing those kinds of things. But yeah, that's, I think, and then canceling. I'm honestly, when you dox somebody, like what happened to what was they count on Twitter?
Lives of TikTok.
Lives of TikTok,
Yeah. I mean, when you're doxing somebody like that, I mean, there's nothing good from that. You're just a terrible human being for doing something like that. And that's certainly not the way that I think conservatives want to respond. Again, we don't respond in kind with those kinds of things. And we definitely want to be able to, like you say, misattributed to Michelle Obama, you take the high road there. But we still have to fight. We can't just lay down and let them take over. So I think you fight with innovation. You fight with finding new ways to disrupt the technology and the culture, and that's really where you're going to see it improvements. And I'll say one thing I really love about Governor Ron DeSantis is he calls him out for things and really puts a light on it. And that to me, I think if we did that more often and in just an honest and truthful way, call people out for what they're doing, it really makes them look foolish and also really helps your cause and gives you a lot of credibility. So I think we could do a lot more of that in an articulate way, less Trumpy way of saying things, but maybe a little bit more DeSantis-y way, and really bring people to that to be able to give people that opportunity to see what people are trying to do, and shine a light on this stuff that's kind of more nefarious, and force corporations to go back into what they back towards their base. I think what we see, especially nowadays, is you get the squeaky wheel where you get just a few people. They're just really loud about things, and they end up changing an entire company because they're scared. They're like, "Oh my gosh, this is what people are saying." And that's the truth, that you get like 5 or 6 people that come to a corporation and say, hey, did you know your sponsor here is doing this or that? Or, why do you guys support this? And then they panic and they react. And I mean, that's, I think, one way that you could definitely fight back is speak up. Say, look, really, really appreciate you guys talking about these certain things. Or, hey, you know what? I stopped using your content because of this. I think it's unacceptable. I mean, that's the squeaky wheel kind of thing, right? Well, you're not necessarily being a jerk about things, but you are letting them know this is the reason why I'm not using your content anymore. And I thought you should know. And generally the idea there is that if one person's telling you, there's probably about 100 or 200 people behind this that feel the same way. So that's kind of my thought on it. It makes more sense to do it that way. Disruption, hostile takeover, and then just speaking up rather than just being that silent majority out there.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, because I think that's kind of almost an alternative to a straight boycott. Just saying on an individual basis, I'm not going to be using this thing anymore. I don't have to use it, so I'm not going to. And I'm also going to communicate that, maybe not in a riotous way, but it maybe in a more respectful way. Again, it kind of goes back to Jacob's point. It depends on the situation. It depends on who you are, and it depends on what the product is and whether it's even viable to do something like that. But Jacob, I'm going to give you the last word on this topic, and then we're going to talk about Moon Knight. For those of you who have not watched Moon Knight, then you're going to have to click off after that. But Jacob, I'm going to give you the last word on this topic.
Well, I just, both of you said it exactly right. The only thing I would like to add is we need to be careful not being reactionary. It's fine to have a reaction, but what I mean is lately there's been this move, especially among sort of center right, anti woke people who are into pop culture, where they want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. So, and we can talk about that with Moon Knight. So, I've not watched Hawkeye, so I'm just going by what people have told me. Is Hawkeye was a bait and switch. It wasn't really that good, and so now we have to say, oh well, Moon Knight wasn't good either. And I don't think that's the right way to go, because if a regular person who might be interested in what we have to say, not because we're important, but because they like pop culture as well, so they're like, hey, let's see what this YouTuber over here is saying about the show. But then they get curious and they watch it themselves. They're like, what do they talk about? This show isn't bad. It's not woke. It's not garbage. It's I feel like we need to sometimes turn off our political antennas and just enjoy things for what they are. I was thinking about this with Venom. Let There Be Carnage was say whatever you want to. It was not a great movie. It was not a good movie, but man, it was fun, and I enjoyed watching Venom battle Carnage in their climactic battle of that film. But you had all of these sort of reactionary people were like, oh well, this Marvel movie, the Eternals was woke, so I'm not going to watch Venom Let There Be Carnage. And then and there's reasons not to like Venom 2. I'm just saying that sort of reactionary, well, this product was woke, so I'm not going to buy this product. I'm just going to slap the woke label on it just to hurt Marvel or Disney. Of course, Venom was Sony, but I'm just using that as an example. Is I think we need to be careful. I think that's a bad strategy. I think we need to be honest. So if like I said, I haven't seen Hawkeye, but if Hawkeye is a bait and switch, it is woke. We need to say, okay, this, that, and the other. But then I watched Moon Knight, and Moon Knight is a better alternative. And I have seen the first 4 episodes of Moon Knight, so I'm really excited to talk about it. But yeah, that's the only thing I would like to tack onto that, because we just need to be careful. We need to be open and honest about these pieces of content.
Yeah, now I just have to say, I am ecstatic about Moon Knight. I love the show. I was skeptical in the beginning, and then my dad watched it with my brother, and he was like, oh my gosh, this was actually good. Kelly, you should watch this. And I was like, yeah, I've heard that before. I've heard that before. I've been slapped upside the head with Loki and with Hawkeye, and even What If it started out really, really good. And then the last episodes, I was just like, that could have been better. So I watched Moon Knight, the first episode, and I was legitimately scared. I was like, I mean, I'm a little bit of a pansy, but it's really weird and keeps you engaged, and you're like, what is going on? And again, just for everyone's knowledge, if you have not seen Moon Knight, we are going to spoil the heck out of it. So do not watch the rest of this episode if you have not seen Moon Knight. But just even like the scene in the first episode where he's running through his apartment complex. He's trying to get away from the voices, and he's like going up and down the elevator, and he opens the elevator and Khonshu's there. And I'm just like, you don't know who this is. It's just this giant bird creature. And you're just like, what is going on? So just things like that were super interesting. And I was like, wow, that was a really great first episode. It's too bad that Marvel has a history of making good first episodes and then sucky rest of the shows, but it holds up. The rest, every single episode, like they've all held up for me. I've been interested and engaged. The most recent episode was such a trip. Like you start at point A and you end up at point F all the way over here, and you're like, how did we get here? It's all very, very interesting. I like kind of the element that he's kind of a split personality kind of a person. Oscar Isaac's performance, being able to be an American and be a British guy, and totally like opposing personalities in the same person, and even just to be able to have a conversation between those two characters is really, really fascinating to me. And I also like, I don't know where anybody is getting this woke idea out of the show. The show like brings up in the first episode the Armenian genocide, acknowledging that that was a thing. In the second episode, we find out that Moon Knight is pro-life, which is amazing. That TikTok video of mine talking about that did like 50K views, a double bonus for me. The third episode and the fourth episode, like both of those together, you know, you're on this journey, you're on this adventure, and it just gets weirder and weirder. And finally, when they brought the girl in, Layla, in the second episode, I was stressed out. I was filled with anxiety because I was like, oh no, some hot chick who's like another Black Widow, and you know, is, you know, women can be just like men, all this. She's not like that at all. Like it's actually talks about how these two characters were married, and it actually frowns upon the fact that he tried to get a divorce from her and all this other stuff. And she's not, I have not been, you know, I've not felt the perception that she's like some superhero type of a person. She seems like she's human and has foibles, which is what I like to see in female characters and male characters generally. I just want to see a real person on the screen. I don't want to necessarily see somebody who's invincible all of the time, or somebody, in the case of a female character, who is not female and actually is somehow a female looking character with the same bone density of a man and can still get hit in the face and it doesn't make any difference. That irritates me beyond belief. But those are my thoughts on Moon Knight. I'm going to toss it over to Jacob because Jacob is sitting on the edge of his seat. He's got to talk about this stuff.
Well, you know, I'll be honest, I'm not a huge Moon Knight aficionado like I am with like Batman or Spider-Man, but you know, he has a lot of crossovers with Moon Knight. Spider-Man has a lot of crossovers with Moon Knight because they're both New York based. So I know I'm kind of casually through those. But yeah, I've been impressed with the show. I said all that to say, it's hard for me to compare it to the comic book lore, but I have been impressed with the show. Like you said, Marvel has been having this really bad habit of introducing Mary Sues, and for those of you who don't know, they're female characters predominantly who, instead of them having to work in the rules of the established universe bends the rules to their favor. Kind of Ray Palpatine is a really good example of this. And Wesley Crusher from Star Trek Next Generation is another great example of this. But I appreciated the fact they do make her an action hero type character. I don't have a problem with that because, like you said, they're not having her fight these 2-ton giant males and just taking them down with a single kick. Like, she has to work for it. They always give her what I like to call a handicap. So like I think it was in the second episode when she fights an assassin, she realizes he's stronger, so she pulls out knives. And I'm fine with that. I think that's a great compromise because I like seeing women who kick butt. And same in episode 4. Again, spoilers, where there's a scene where there's a truck coming after them, and the truck has one of those mounted machine guns, and she uses a flare to blow up the ammo. That's great because she's established that she's an intelligent person. She's an archaeologist. She's a little bit of an adventurer. She's a little bit of a rogue. So that's great. They're working within the confines of the universe that they established for her. I like that about it. I also really like Oscar Isaacs. He's doing a great job. A lot of times when they do stories where there's multiple personality disorder, they always either try to radically change what the person physically looks like when they go into one of their alters, or they have a different actor play him. So when I heard that Oscar Isaacs was going to be also Mark Spector as well as Steven, I was like, oh my gosh, this is going to be kind of weird for him. But no, he's a good actor, and he does a good job with both of the characters. I can't wait for them to introduce Jacob. He's supposed to be the third. He's the in the comic books, at least, he's the third personality, and they can't really do this for the show because of licensing issues. But the three Moon Knight characters are based off of one's based off of Captain America, one's based off Spider-Man, and the other one's based on the Punisher. And from what they're hinting, the Punisher one hasn't come out yet. So I'm curious to see how. And they hinted at him, especially in the third episode. So I'm curious to see. Normally, I believe. I think they've swapped a few of them because I think actually Steven is supposed to be the Punisher one, but they've clearly made him more like the Spider-Man one, with a little bit of Deadpool personality worked in there. So I'm curious to see. I guess they're going to make it where Jacob, I'm not saying he's my favorite because he's my namesake, but I'm not saying that also. But so I'm curious to see how that's going to go. I would love for him to have the black mask. So they've done Moon Knight with the white mask. They've done the Mr. Knight, which is the suit. So now I would like to see the black mask Moon Knight, which I hope is what they do for the final personality. Can't wait to see that. It's a good show so far. Like you said, I thought, oh, the pilot's going to be good, and then it's going to go off the rails. I do wish that we would see Moon Knight a little bit more, but other than that, I'm enjoying it a great deal. I think it's fun.
Before I toss it over to Kyle, I want to make note. They've been hinting at the tri-personality thing so hard, and even in every credits, it splits him into three heads when it comes up to Oscar Isaac's credit. So I just love how it's kind of like what I loved about WandaVision. The subtle details tell me that somebody actually cared about this project to make it a good quality project, and that's kind of what I'm getting from Moon Knight, and I appreciate that. It's almost like this is their way of saying we respect you as an audience and we cared enough about this product to make it good. So Kyle, I'm going to let you have the floor so that you can talk about Moon Knight.
Yeah. So this coming from more of a different perspective, I'm completely uninitiated into Moon Knight, and prior to Kelly saying, "Hey, have you checked this out?" And then I binged it at that point. Absolutely love it. I think it's just so entertaining. It's cerebral. I love the fact that they have somebody that is dealing with schizophrenia and really trying to figure out what's going on. And I can't praise enough Oscar Isaac and his performance. Oh my gosh, it's amazing. It really does feel like sometimes when I'm watching it, I forget that they're not two separate people, but it's just the same guy doing the acting there. And I think he does it so well. I mean, you really get that timidity, and then you get that just, insane amount of courage and just confidence from the characters, and just the split there. It's just fantastic. I think he's really shines in this role more than any other role I think I've seen him in to date. And again, I'm not a huge movie buff, but from what I have seen him, gosh, this is just probably my favorite role he's played. And again, I can't praise him enough for how well he's done this. And I think that, the supporting actors have also been done really well. Arthur Harrow is as creepy as I'll get out. I mean, I don't want to be around that guy most of the time. I think Ethan Hawke does a really great job there. I really love the whole idea they bring up about free will versus being forced into certain things. That kind of whole idea that we're going to make certain decisions, and it's already been made, and so there's no point. Versus someone having free will and be able to live and maybe potentially change those choices. And I really like that deeper philosophy they kind of weave into there. So you're not just getting a beat 'em up kind of superhero movie, but really there's some deeper topics that they're addressing and discussing in this, and I think it's really makes it a lot more interesting, rather than your typical kind of maybe like a Thor movie where it's kind of beat 'em up most of the time. So I really enjoyed that. I'm really excited to see where it goes. I really hope it just keeps on the same track where, you're getting those smaller details and more, some subtle, a little more obvious on some. Especially when I think at one point they both are looking at each other like, did you do that? Did you do that? Like, what happened here? That's when, to me, I mean, I'm a little dense, so it dawned on me like, oh my gosh, there's somebody else there. And so yeah, that's really interesting. I think there's still a lot more to be revealed. This last episode just blew me away. I'm like, oh my gosh, because they're kind of still. It seems like they're still playing on the idea maybe he really is just crazy, and this is all in his head. And for the uninitiated like me, it kind of throws that little bit of doubt in there. So you're like, oh, maybe he is just crazy, and this is all he's just kind of waking up from it. So I love that. I think it's just a fascinating study of somebody who's obviously got multiple personalities in their body. Again, it still functions, but it's like, it's really crazy or not. And it's kind of what Inception does for you at the end of the movie. It's like at this point in time, you're like, okay, is that thing going to fall over or not? And it leaves it up for discussion. And I love movies and shows that do that, that really give you that kind of ability to kind of create your own ending, if you will. But so I'm excited to see what happens here in the future, obviously. But it's great. I think the only knock I would give, I wish the CGI was a little bit better on Moon Knight. I think that first time you revealed, I was like, they could have done a little bit better with this. But I think generally it's been just fantastic otherwise. So storyline, plot, it's excellent. It's someone like me that I get bored with movies. Like, I kind of know what the ending's going to be before it happens. This one's got me completely just guessing, and I think that's the best part about it. So
Yeah, I'm really excited because I was completely thrown for a loop by that ending on the fourth episode. I'm like, oh my gosh, he's in a psych ward, and even things like all the characters that we've seen previously are also in the psych ward. So like his boss Donna is in there, and obviously Layla's in there. She's eating the marshmallows like she was in that previous episode when she was randomly eating marshmallows, and I was like, that was weird. All these, even the police officers are like the I don't even know what the attendants inside the psych ward are the police officers that came to his door in I think it was in the second episode. So I just, again, it goes back to all those details. I love the details. I love the mystery. I love that my brain is like exploding. Like, is he really in the psych ward, or is it like, I think they gave it away. I will say this, and I'll toss it back to you guys but I watched it a second time last night, and I heard Arthur Harrow when he's like consulting with Mark, and he says, we don't live in a material world, we live in the psychic world. And so I think my extrapolation is, I think he's saying that the psych ward is not real by saying that. However, I want to hear what you guys have to say before we wrap up the show. So Jacob, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that we're going to find out that the psych ward is him trapped in his own mind. Like, maybe Kantu did something to him to save his life, so he's trapped him in some sort of psychic world, similar to Boston Brand from DC Comics, where he's kind of trapped as a ghost. And though I don't think they're going to bring Moon Knight back as a ghost, I think that Kantu probably just did something to him in case he died, because to me, they've kind of implied that that the Kantu's chosen has to give up the role at some point. Otherwise, so I think with Kantu trapped, he can't have another avatar. So I think that probably before Kantu got turned to stone by the other Egyptian deities, he did something to Mark to do that in case Mark ever died. So I'm excited to see that. I could be wrong. I'm guessing. One other thing I want to say is I really hope Dietrich Bader has a cameo, because Dietrich Bader, he's an actor. He was on a show called Outsourced, and he's voiced Batman in Harley Quinn animated series. But he was the voice of Moon Knight in the Ultimate Spider-Man animated show. And so I think it would just be great if in one episode he just has like a quick cameo appearance, since he was also the voice of Moon Knight for Marvel previously. So, but anyway, just throwing that out there.
Kyle, what do you think? Am I completely off my rocker, or did I hit the nail on the head?
No, I think you're pretty close. I mean, it'd be a really short show, right? If it ended right here. There's obviously something going on. Maybe he's in some sort of limbo or something, where he's going to be coming back in some way. Maybe it's like Gandalf the Grey going to Gandalf the White. You know, his time wasn't finished, so he needs to come back, and they're going to bring him back. It's something along those lines. It's got to be. I mean, there's no way that he's just crazy. Ends up being crazy. So I think it is some kind of mental prison, if you will, or maybe it's some other dimension that he's in. Notice that obviously the other avatar, but it was actually the god itself that shows up right there at the end. I can't remember her name, Hippo Face lady, but obviously I think it's maybe something that she's done to help preserve him. Because they did have the exchange, and I really do think she's trying to help him out, help out Khonshu in some way, because I think that she gets it, and so she's trying to do what she can to help preserve him, so that she can help, get rid of Arthur Harrow in some way or whatever. So I think she probably has something to do with it, and I think he's going to come back. There's no doubt in my mind, some physical form. How that's going to happen, I have no idea. But he's with the Egyptian goddess there, so she's got tricks up her sleeve. Is what I'm thinking.
That's actually a really interesting theory. I hadn't heard that one yet, but it makes total sense. Again, it's all connected, and all these details and everything. I just love it. This is one of my favorite shows. This is like second only. I still would say I liked WandaVision better, but possibly I would even say the quality on Moon Knight possibly surpasses WandaVision as well. So I know, shocking, as I was the WandaVision aficionado, everybody knows this. So I just to wrap this up, thank you guys for coming on my channel. If you guys want to follow Jacob, he's on StudioJakeMedia.com. You can find him on YouTube, Twitter, pretty much even all of the alternative platforms. You can find him anywhere and everywhere, and you can't find Kyle Key anywhere. He is the most undercover, unassuming nerd. So you will have to subscribe to my channel in order to see him talk about more nerd stuff, because I'm sure he's going to be back. We have to have him back when we can get my other guest, Garrett Humbertson, back on the show. But thank you guys for joining, and I will talk to you guys on the next episode.